The Zrithian High Council gathered in the obsidian spires of the Imperial Citadel, their elongated limbs casting fractured, angular shadows across the polished floors that shimmered like liquid night. The air was dense with anticipation, a charged energy, amplified by hums of machinery, low-frequency resonances from the gravitic stabilizers, and the quiet, methodical whir of patrol drones. This was to be the spectacle that would cement their dominion across the galaxy, a demonstration of supreme authority. A human, fragile and inconsequential in physicality, would be made an example. The girl's life was a pawn, their pride the true prize. The platform awaited her. Elevated, cold, and unforgiving, it was forged from alloys designed to withstand not only attack, but shock waves, heat, and vibration, symbols of Zrithian permanence. She stepped onto it with a quiet grace, her small frame seeming almost fragile against the vastness of the chamber. And yet, to the eyes of the council, her presence was not one of fear, but of an audacious calm that unsettled them. Her shoulders squared, her chin lifted, and she smiled. An imperceptible, almost imperceptible curve of lips, but it carried more power than any weapon in the citadel. The executioner approached, clad in ceremonial armor etched with millennia of conquest, each line a record of battles won, civilizations subjugated, and planets claimed. His hand hovered over the plasma staff, light arcs dancing across its surface, a tool of annihilation that had never failed. Sensors flickered, scanning her physiology for any sign of hesitation, any tremor that could betray weakness. Yet she stood motionless, her breathing steady, her gaze unflinching. The council, creatures of logic and precision, found themselves disquieted. Calculations ran endlessly in their minds, trying to reconcile this human anomaly with probability models. But nothing could account for the serenity radiating from one small girl. "Do your worst," she said, her voice tremulous yet deliberate, cutting through the hum of machinery. The words were frail, yet the resonance reached the edges of the chamber and beyond, transmitted by holographic feeds to billions of eyes across the galaxy. Every syllable carried defiance, a refusal to submit, a declaration that life, even fragile human life, was not easily extinguished. The council had prepared for spectacle, not this. They had expected terror, but not courage. They had expected fear, but not transcendence. The holograms projected her defiance in high definition across thousands of worlds. And yet, her impact was more than visual. It was psychological, a tremor in the neural patterns of all who watched. Even those who had long trained to suppress emotion felt it, a pulse of recognition that life, spirit, and will could defy the most absolute control. In those final moments, the girl's eyes, so achingly human, seemed to pierce the very essence of the Zrithians themselves, weighing, assessing, challenging. The executioner's hand, steady for decades, began to quiver. The plasma staff flickered, arcs of lethal light dancing unpredictably across its surface. Commands were ready to be executed, sequences loaded, yet the machine seemed hesitant, the energy coalescing around the girl's small form with an almost imperceptible reluctance. The council, masters of conquest, stared, their compound eyes narrowing as their protocols faltered. In centuries of domination, they had never observed hesitation, not in themselves, not in their instruments, not in the laws of physics that bent to their will. Yet here it was, hesitation. The chamber itself seemed to breathe with anticipation. Sensors picked up micro-vibrations in the walls, minute fluctuations in gravity fields, even in the flow of the air. All of reality, it seemed, held its breath. The girl's defiance had transformed her from mere human into a force of nature. The council whispered among themselves in low, terrified tones, questioning calculations, models, and the very essence of control. Her courage was a weight that none had foreseen, a gravitational anomaly of spirit that bent probabilities and distorted logic. Outside, across the galaxy, humans watched in secret. Hidden colonies, long oppressed and scattered, transmitted signals, whispered codes, and held their breath. The holographic feed carried not just an image, but a spark, a resonance that passed from one heart to another. Across light years, humans felt it. Across the void, the courage of one small girl ignited a collective consciousness of defiance. The executioner's hand moved, slowly, with the inevitability of someone performing a ritual, yet each microsecond stretched into eternity. Plasma arcs shimmered, sensors calibrated, and the command interface pulsed with the weight of potential destruction. But the girl did not flinch. She held her gaze, held her voice, held her spirit like an unbroken line. She was small, fragile, mortal, and yet in those moments she carried the weight of her species. The first spark ignited in the council: unease. It started as a subtle ripple, a misalignment in neural feedback loops, a hesitation in thought sequences. Then came fear. Not the crude fear of physical danger, but existential fear. The realization that life, spirit, and audacity could not always be measured, could not always be contained, could not always be extinguished. And the longer they hesitated, the more the girl's defiance grew, expanding outward like a contagion. And then came the moment. Silence. Absolute, suffocating, profound. The command hung in the air, waiting to be executed, waiting to obliterate. And yet the machinery paused, reality hesitated, the laws of probability shivered. The council expected triumph, the executioner expected a result, the galaxy expected spectacle. Instead, an unspoken dread took root. The girl's small frame, fragile and human, had revealed the true weight of what they had never accounted for: spirit. The moment stretched, elongated, infinite. Observers in distant worlds leaned closer, holding their breath, as if the universe itself had paused. And then, with the smallest, almost imperceptible movement, the command was executed, but not as intended. The plasma staff activated, arcs dancing harmlessly above the platform, and the girl stepped forward, her eyes bright with defiance, her voice ringing across the void. In that instant, billions of eyes across the galaxy witnessed not death, but the birth of a legend. The Zrithians, masters of empire, felt the first tremor of a power they could neither quantify nor dominate. Their instruments recorded anomalies they could not explain. Their protocols faltered. Their pride, cultivated for millennia, began to crumble in the presence of one human spark. And somewhere in that infinite darkness, humanity understood. The galaxy was watching, waiting, and ready to rise. It was only the beginning. The galaxy had never known a span of time like the 47 minutes that followed the girl's execution. To the Zrithians, it was inconceivable, an impossible sequence of events that defied millennia of logic, computation, and military doctrine. Systems that had once operated flawlessly, fleets that had dominated star systems for centuries, entire planetary defense networks, all faltered. Not from sabotage, not from any calculable failure, but from the tremor of defiance that had passed through the cosmos like a shockwave. The High Command convened in the orbital citadel above Thrill Prime, each officer's compound eyes reflecting the failing lights of their collapsing networks. Reports cascaded in faster than they could process. Fleets stalled mid-battle, weapons locked or misfired, orbital stations that should have resisted any attack fell silent. The humans, tiny, fragile, seemingly inconsequential humans, moved with an almost supernatural coordination. Every colony, every fleet, every resistance cell across the galaxy surged simultaneously, synchronized by a force no Zrithian algorithm could predict. It was as if the girl's defiance had awakened something primal in the human psyche, a collective instinct that transcended distance, communication protocols, and even space itself. Commanders who had been pillars of authority for centuries found themselves paralyzed. Their claws hovered over control interfaces, frozen by disbelief. Automated systems, the perfect extensions of Zrithian order, hesitated, locked, or shut down entirely. Defensive grids that had never failed now blinked in uncertainty, energy flowing erratically through shields and turrets. Algorithms struggled to reconcile the anomaly, endlessly recalculating and failing. It was not mere error, it was awe, fear, a recognition of a force beyond understanding. In the voids between star systems, human ships moved with precision that seemed preordained. They emerged from hidden star systems, abandoned outposts, and secret colonies, converging on key points of Zrithian infrastructure. Planets considered untouchable fell in hours. Human pilots, engineers, and soldiers acted in perfect synchronization, anticipating each alien maneuver before it occurred. Where the Zrithians expected chaos, they found order, and yet the order was not their own. It was human, born of instinct, will, and courage, entirely alien to those who had dominated the stars through calculation alone. Across the galaxy, colonies long enslaved by Zrithian rule rose as one. Human settlements repaired orbital stations overnight, coordinated strikes across multiple systems, and shared information through networks the Zrithians could neither trace nor intercept. Resistance cells that had been fragmented for decades now acted as a singular entity. Each victory, no matter how small, amplified the courage of others, creating a feedback loop of audacity that the Zrithians could not contain. Every calculated assumption, every contingency plan, every fleet formation collapsed under the relentless ingenuity of a species they had underestimated. The High Council, observing from their spires, recorded data in real time, but found the numbers meaningless. Predictions failed, models collapsed. Every decision, every command, every weapon fired, its result was unpredictable. The humans did not act according to strategy alone. They adapted, improvised, and anticipated in a manner that transcended mathematics. Each strike was simultaneously tactical, instinctual, and moral. They acted not only with precision, but with purpose, courage, and an integrity that confounded alien understanding. And then came the psychological shock. Zrithian commanders began witnessing acts of bravery that seemed to mock the very notion of fear. Individual humans, stranded on decimated planets, engaged entire regiments with nothing but ingenuity and willpower. Ships abandoned by their alien overlords cut through space like blades, striking with pinpoint accuracy. Entire orbital arrays were neutralized without a single human ship being destroyed. It was as if the universe itself had conspired to empower them, to bend the laws of probability in their favor, to honor the courage of the girl whose defiance had sparked the phenomenon. The High Command, creatures of logic and order, began murmuring in fear. Calculations were useless. The galaxy no longer obeyed predictable laws. Systems failed not because of technological error, but because the humans' collective spirit reshaped reality around them. Even the most advanced AI constructs faltered, paralyzed by the unpredictability of human action. The Zrithians, proud masters of conquest, had become spectators to a power they could not control, unable to distinguish between strategy and instinct, between intelligence and sheer audacity. In every sector, the collapse was total. Fleet formations that had been symbols of invincibility now drifted aimlessly, abandoned by their officers, dismantled by tactical strikes that seemed to anticipate each movement. Automated defense systems, designed to react faster than any biological operator, paused mid-sequence, unsure whether to fire or to stand down, as if sensing the monumental courage behind human action. Colonies once considered inconsequential became hubs of uprising. Planets thought securely enslaved erupted in coordinated resistance. And across the stars, whispers of the girl's defiance grew louder, spreading faster than any signal, embedding themselves in the consciousness of every Zrithian who dared to watch. The 47th minute was apocalyptic in brevity and magnitude. By its conclusion, the Empire, once flawless and invincible, lay in ruin. Power grids failed across multiple sectors. Command centers, once the heartbeats of military dominance, flickered and went dark. Armadas disintegrated mid-orbit. their coordinated formations unraveling into chaos. And everywhere, the humans advanced, not as conquerors, but as survivors, innovators, and symbols of defiance. Each victory carried resonance far beyond the tactical. It carried meaning, courage, and purpose. The surviving Zrithians, long masters of the galaxy, could only whisper to each other in awe and fear. The realization sank into their collective consciousness. Humans were not merely another species. They were forces of nature, fragile in body, yet indomitable in spirit, small in number, yet monumental in effect. The girl, whose life had been intended to serve as an example of subjugation, had become the catalyst for the unraveling of centuries of domination. Her courage had reshaped probability, rewritten strategy, and, in a single act, awakened a species-wide consciousness that no empire could suppress. And so, in those 47 minutes, the galaxy itself seemed to tremble. Orders were ignored, weapons faltered, fleets stalled, colonies rebelled. It was as if existence had recognized a species unbound by fear, unshackled by expectation, and uncontainable by any form of domination. The empire had fallen, not in months, years, or centuries, but in minutes, shattered by the resonance of defiance, the power of will, and the spark of one human girl. The surviving Zrithians fled into the void, whispering of the human spirit that had undone their perfect order. Across the galaxy, humans continued their advance, calm, methodical, and unstoppable. The legend had begun, and the cosmos had taken notice. One species, fragile in form but unbreakable in spirit, had revealed the true weight of humanity, and the universe would never again underestimate them. The galaxy whispered of humanity. From the shattered corridors of Zrithian star fortresses to the silent voids of abandoned colonies, the echoes of one girl's defiance had grown into a chorus of legends. Survivors of the fallen empire wandered through ruins that were once bastions of absolute control, their compound eyes reflecting devastation and wonder in equal measure. For the first time, the Zrithians felt the full, unquantifiable weight of a species whose resilience they could not calculate, whose audacity they could not anticipate, whose will they could not bend. On Thrill Prime, a planet scarred by decades of oppression, the ruins of orbital docking bays now hummed with quiet energy. Small human settlements had emerged from the shadows, repairing shattered communications arrays overnight, reactivating abandoned starports, and redistributing scarce resources with uncanny efficiency. Alien observers recorded with disbelief. These humans, broken and scattered, moved with a synchronicity that surpassed any algorithm. Ships repaired themselves in hours, engines recalibrated, weapons systems reactivated, all without the guidance of centralized command. It was as if instinct, will, and courage had fused into a collective intelligence. Zrithian commanders documented each event with growing dread. Entire human communities anticipated alien maneuvers before they occurred, predicting ambushes, deploying defenses, and launching counterattacks with an elegance that was impossible to model. Intelligence arrays could not track patterns because there were no patterns to track, only instinct, improvisation, and relentless courage. Every victory, no matter how small, became a story, a legend whispered from colony to colony, spreading faster than any fleet or signal. Across the stars, these stories inspired yet more acts of human ingenuity, acts that confounded and terrified the alien minds that tried to observe and contain them. In the voids of conquered worlds, Zrithian scouts witnessed phenomena they could not comprehend. Humans repaired orbital stations overnight, transforming ruined planets into defensive hubs. Communities acted with uncanny precision, coordinating logistics across entire star systems. Pilots maneuvered as though guided by intuition rather than calculation, striking with precision that defied even the most advanced targeting algorithms. Engineers, scavenging remnants of Zrithian technology, reimagined weapons and defenses in ways that transformed tools of oppression into instruments of liberation. The aliens recorded it all, struggling to reconcile the scope of human innovation with their understanding of physical and cognitive limitations. The whispers of the girl's execution had become a wind, carrying awe and fear across the galaxy. Humans did not simply act, they inspired. Young humans on distant colonies, some never having seen the girl, emulated her courage, standing unflinching in the face of Zrithian forces. Each act of defiance reinforced the legend, embedding it in every human consciousness, passing it from generation to generation. Across light years, scattered groups rose in synchrony, their actions guided by a force that the Zrithians could only describe as the resonance of human spirit. The aliens watched quietly, recording every small victory, every act of courage, every whispered story. Fleet after fleet, colony after colony fell to ingenuity and willpower. The humans' resilience was not fueled solely by technology or strategy. It was something more, something ineffable. It glowed in their eyes, a spark that no Zrithian could replicate, a spark that shaped battles and inspired generations. Even the most stoic of Zrithian commanders felt a chill whenever a human presence was near. Their instincts, honed over millennia of conquest, recognized that humans operated under rules alien to any empire: defiance, courage, and an unrelenting drive to endure. On the shattered moon of Krythos, scouts reported a human colony that had been reduced to rubble, its buildings leveled, its supply lines destroyed. Yet the humans rebuilt. In less than a galactic cycle, the colony had re-established defenses, repaired communication networks, and launched a coordinated strike against the orbiting alien fleet that had intended to finish them. The alien sensors recorded every maneuver, but no data could explain the speed, coordination, or creativity. It was instinct, it was courage, it was something that existed beyond probability, beyond calculation, beyond domination. Across multiple star systems, similar stories unfolded. Engineers repurposed alien technologies into tools of liberation. Pilots executed maneuvers impossible by any conventional standard. Soldiers fought with courage that defied exhaustion, hunger, and fear. Each victory, each act of ingenuity rippled outward like a wave, transforming despair into possibility. The galaxy was no longer a stage of submission, it was alive with human defiance. The surviving Zrithians chronicled these events, unable to reconcile them with their experience. They recorded names, ships, colonies, and battles, but even the most detailed logs failed to capture the essence of what they observed. Humans were paradoxical, fragile yet unstoppable, small yet monumental, mortal yet heroic. They defied every law the Zrithians understood, yet acted with discipline, honor, and vision. The alien historians grew obsessed, following the threads of legend, attempting to understand, to categorize, to predict. Yet every answer only deepened the mystery. In the voids between the stars, humans moved as one, yet each acted with individuality. Fleet commanders coordinated across impossible distances, colonies shared resources with perfect timing, and warriors anticipated alien tactics with almost preternatural accuracy. It was as if the girl's defiance had seeded an instinctual network of courage and ingenuity, a consciousness of resistance shared across light years. And wherever humans emerged, the Zrithians recoiled, not merely because of the tactical threat, but because of the awe-inspiring, incomprehensible force they had become. Legends grew in the telling. Across colonies, small victories were recounted as epic tales. Ships thought lost reappeared as symbols of hope. Entire planetary populations rose against impossible odds, achieving feats that the Zrithians had long considered improbable or impossible. And yet, humans never became reckless. Their actions were calculated, precise, and guided by an inner morality that the aliens could not predict. Every liberation, every strategic strike carried with it a humanity that the Zrithians could neither comprehend nor counter. Even as centuries-old fortresses crumbled, human colonies flourished. Children learned of the girl who had refused to bow. Engineers repaired orbital stations overnight, and fleets coordinated as though guided by an invisible hand. Zrithians recorded the events with meticulous detail, but in their hearts they feared what they could not measure. The human spirit, growing stronger, expanding outward, impossible to contain. The whispers became a gale. Across every corner of the galaxy, humans rose in defiance, inspired by stories of courage, resilience, and unity. Formerly subjugated species observed in awe, learning to trust humans not as conquerors, but as leaders, visionaries, and protectors. The galaxy shifted, not through weapons, but through inspiration. Humanity had become a force of nature, a species whose legends were written in the stars, whose courage reshaped probability, and whose spirit could never be extinguished. The Zrithians, haunted by these stories, realized a terrifying truth. Humans could not be predicted, could not be controlled, and could not be defeated in any conventional sense. Their spirit was beyond weaponry, beyond strategy, beyond domination. Humanity was alive in every whisper, every tale, every act of courage, and the galaxy, for the first time in millennia, belonged to no one. The legend had begun, and the Zrithians, long masters of the stars, could only watch in awe, fear, and incomprehension as humans, small yet monumental, fragile yet indomitable, rewrote the rules of existence. The galaxy had never known such a symphony of rebellion. From the perspective of the surviving Zrithians, it was not merely war, it was orchestrated chaos, a sequence of events so precise, so audacious, and so impossibly coordinated that their algorithms failed to compute even a fraction of it. Hidden systems long abandoned, outposts thought destroyed, fleets scattered across the void, all surged forth in unison, guided by an intelligence that seemed almost instinctual, yet was undeniably human. The counterstrike had begun. From the shadows of the Thrill Nebula, human ships emerged in formations that defied expectation. Each vessel moved as if aware of the other's intentions, weaving through debris fields with unparalleled precision. Zrithian observers, watching from fortified orbital stations, documented impossible maneuvers. Fighters split to flank approaching fleets, yet never collided. Capital ships executed complex orbital adjustments, striking alien strongholds from angles that should have been impossible to calculate. Every human action was simultaneously innovative and intuitive, as if the girls' defiance had awakened a collective consciousness of strategic genius among every human soul. Planets once considered untouchable fell in hours. Orbital defenses that had withstood centuries of assault were neutralized through improvisation, creativity, and sheer audacity. Engineers hacked ancient Zrithian systems, repurposing them as weapons or shields. Pilots navigated asteroid fields, black holes, and debris storms with the grace of dancers, yet the precision of seasoned tacticians. Even the most sophisticated Zrithian countermeasures, designed to anticipate and nullify any threat, failed catastrophically, overwhelmed not by numbers or firepower, but by human ingenuity itself. On Calthor Prime, a planet long enslaved, resistance cells coordinated with fleets light-years away. Signals once considered untraceable now pulsed with encrypted commands, orchestrating strikes that dismantled planetary defenses before the Zrithians could respond. Fleet admirals, trained in millennia of military doctrine, watched in horror as human forces anticipated their maneuvers. Every assault, every tactical repositioning, every strike followed no known protocol, and yet it worked. Humans moved as a singular entity, guided by instinct, courage, and an unbreakable drive to survive and reclaim their freedom. The High Command convened frantically in orbit over Thrill Prime, their claws clattering against console panels, their compound eyes widening with disbelief. "Impossible," one murmured, a sound like gravel grinding across steel. Entire planetary systems, thought secure for centuries, were overrun in days. Armadas stalled mid-attack, weapons locked, energy beams misfiring, as human fleets exploited weaknesses the Zrithians had never calculated. Every contingency the aliens had prepared crumbled under the weight of audacity, intelligence, and resolve that was as human as it was terrifying. In the voids of abandoned colonies, humans rebuilt infrastructure, constructed defensive arrays, and prepared ambushes that anticipated every possible alien response. Engineers adapted alien technology with uncanny speed, producing weapons and shields in hours that the Zrithians assumed would take cycles. Soldiers engaged advanced drones with minimal casualties, using tactics that were both creative and devastatingly effective. And in every skirmish, in every maneuver, humans displayed a terrifying clarity. They were not merely reacting, they were shaping reality, rewriting the rules of engagement through sheer will and foresight. Across sectors, Zrithian observers noted patterns that should have been impossible. Humans anticipated alien strategies before they were executed. Their fleets moved in synchronization over light years, coordinating strikes with instantaneous precision. Supply lines, once assumed vulnerable, became fortresses of efficiency. Colonies that had been scattered and fragmented now operated as integrated units, striking with coordinated brilliance that left even the most advanced Zrithian sensors incapable of predicting outcomes. The girl's spark, ignited in the execution platform, had now become a galaxy-wide force. Humans moved as one species, yet each individual contributed unique insight, improvisation, and courage. Pilots risked annihilation to achieve objectives, engineers sacrificed safety to deliver solutions, and ground forces executed maneuvers that combined instinct, intuition, and unparalleled tactical reasoning. Even the smallest human acts, repairing a communication array, repurposing an abandoned outpost, coordinating a covert strike, resonated across the galaxy, influencing outcomes far beyond their immediate scope. Zrithian fleets, once symbols of perfection and order, faltered. Automated defense drones hesitated mid-strike, unsure whether to obey protocols or respond to the unprecedented audacity of human forces. Commanders shouted orders, clawing at consoles as data flowed too fast to process. But every response was countered with foresight and precision that no algorithm could anticipate. Humanity's counterstrike was not chaotic. It was a meticulously orchestrated dance of strategy, instinct, and relentless courage. Even the most fortified Zrithian citadels were compromised. Humans exploited vulnerabilities no one thought existed. Orbital arrays were dismantled by engineering teams who reconfigured enemy weapons into tools of liberation. Supply convoys moved undetected through zones declared impassable. Each victory, whether by a single vessel or a coordinated fleet, reinforced the legend of human ingenuity, courage, and unity. Alien observers could not measure it, could not predict it, and could not contain it. And yet, the humans' brilliance was not purely tactical. Every strike, every maneuver carried intention. Civilians were spared, resources protected, lives preserved wherever possible. They acted with discipline, honor, and vision. To the Zrithians, this was incomprehensible. A species capable of dismantling entire fleets and planetary defenses still adhered to a code of ethics and restraint. It was a force beyond calculation, a paradox of vulnerability and invincibility, fragility and unstoppable will. By the end of the campaign, entire sectors had shifted. Zrithian dominance had crumbled, not due to attrition or weakness, but because humanity's collective spirit and ingenuity could not be opposed. The galaxy had become a theater for human will, a demonstration of what a species could achieve when unified, inspired, and driven by courage that transcended fear. Where the Zrithians had expected chaos, they found clarity. Where they had expected rebellion, they found an intelligence that redefined strategy itself. And so, as the humans pressed forward, liberating systems and dismantling fortresses, the surviving Zrithians whispered their fear, awe, and disbelief. Humanity was no longer a species to be conquered. They were a force of nature. The counterstrike had not merely reclaimed territory, it had rewritten the rules of engagement, reshaped the galaxy, and revealed a truth that the Zrithians could never unsee. Humans, fragile in body but monumental in spirit, were unstoppable. The galaxy watched. Humans moved with precision, honor, and a relentless drive that no empire could suppress. Every strike, every liberation, every defiance was a testament to a species unshakable in its resolve. By the end of this extraordinary campaign, the Zrithians understood the unthinkable. Humans were not merely survivors, they were catalysts of transformation, agents of a new cosmic order. And the legend continued to grow. The remnants of the Zrithian elite gathered on the final bastion of their empire, a citadel suspended in orbit around a dying star. Its towers, black as void and sharp as blades, had withstood centuries of rebellion, insurrections, and cosmic warfare. Here, they believed, lay the ultimate proof of their supremacy, their last line, the unbreachable heart of control. But from the void beyond, a tide of human ships approached, silent yet resolute, their engines cutting through the blackness like strokes of defiance painted across the heavens. The Zrithian commanders, masters of terror and strategy for millennia, watched with disbelief as the humans moved with a precision that defied their calculations. Not a single vessel hesitated, not a single formation faltered. It was not merely a fleet advancing, it was a manifestation of intent, courage, and unyielding resolve. The humans had taken the lessons of every prior battle, every victory, every whispered legend, and synthesized them into a force the aliens could not comprehend. Inside the Citadel, the Council observed the advancing human armada through vast holoscreens that stretched along walls of obsidian. Claws hovered over consoles, sensors flickered, and compound eyes widened in shock. Every countermeasure they activated failed to anticipate the humans' ingenuity. Shields that should have held faltered under strikes that seemed impossibly coordinated. Drones sent to intercept vanished, overpowered by strategies the Zrithians could not predict. Every plan executed with confidence crumbled as if reality itself had shifted to favor a species they had deemed inconsequential. On the bridge of a human flagship, Captain Lyra Kale's voice cut through calms. Calm, measured, unwavering. Advance, precision, protect the civilians. Her orders were simple, yet carried the weight of centuries of oppression and defiance. Her crew responded with perfect synchrony, each pilot, engineer, and soldier anticipating not only the next move of their allies, but the faltering reactions of the alien defenders. To the Zrithians, it appeared almost supernatural, human will given form, moving as one yet maintaining individuality, a phenomenon entirely alien to their understanding. On the bridge of a human flagship, Captain Lyra Kale's voice cut through calms. Calm, measured, unwavering. Advance, precision, protect the civilians. Her orders were simple, yet carried the weight of centuries of oppression and defiance. Her crew responded with perfect synchrony, each pilot, engineer, and soldier anticipating not only the next move of their allies, but the faltering reactions of the alien defenders. To the Zrithians, it appeared almost supernatural, human will given form, moving as one yet maintaining individuality, a phenomenon entirely alien to their understanding. The first waves of assault struck the Citadel's orbital defenses. Lasers meant to pulverize incoming ships faltered. Shield generators, tuned to resist centuries of attack, flickered and shut down. Human vessels exploited micro-weaknesses that had never been mapped, striking with precision that seemed preordained. Zrithian officers, who had faced rebellions that spanned entire sectors, were rendered helpless by tactics that no algorithm could anticipate. Each human maneuver carried not only the efficiency of military genius, but also the audacity of a species that refused to yield, that had transformed every hardship into power. On the surface, human commandos breached key infrastructure points with surgical precision. They dismantled energy conduits, seized weapon caches, and coordinated sabotage across multiple levels of the Citadel simultaneously. The aliens' automated security systems, built to anticipate any threat, locked down in confusion, unsure whether to resist or yield. Each act of human ingenuity was magnified by courage, discipline, and an innate understanding of timing and consequence. The Zrithians' greatest fear emerged not from the firepower of the humans, but from their unflinching resolve, their strategic brilliance, and the unity of their purpose. Throughout the citadel, alarms blared, corridors shook from bombardments, and the very gravity fields wavered under strain. Yet humans moved calmly, with discipline and focus. Engineers rerouted power to bypass destroyed nodes, medics moved through chaos to tend the wounded, and soldiers executed maneuvers that dismantled alien defenses without unnecessary bloodshed. Even as destruction surrounded them, every action carried precision, ethics, and unwavering courage, a force so alien that Zrithian observers could not reconcile it with their understanding of the universe. As the Citadel's systems failed one by one, the Zrithian elite convened in their inner sanctum, staring at holoscreens displaying human forces pressing forward. Their voices trembled, unaccustomed to fear of this magnitude. "Impossible! They cannot," one whispered, before another hissed, "We have misjudged them." The alien language lacked words for the magnitude of what they observed, a species so small, so fragile in form, yet capable of dismantling centuries of empire through intellect, courage, and unity. The humans did not move as conquerors, they moved with a sense of justice, honor, and purpose. Each strike was measured, every decision deliberate. Even as the Citadel's towers crumbled under orbital bombardment, civilians were spared. Drones that could have incinerated entire sectors were repurposed to evacuate trapped populations. Engineers used alien technology to reinforce structures where human lives could be preserved. Every human act carried not only strategy, but morality, an ethical code that the Zrithians could neither predict nor comprehend. The final moments approached. The Citadel's core, a massive reactor containing centuries of Zrithian power, flickered violently under precise human strikes. Structural supports groaned, gravity fields oscillated unpredictably. The elite clung to their consoles, their compound eyes wide with a mixture of awe and despair. Every weapon fired faltered, every countermeasure failed. Humanity advanced, unyielding, disciplined, and fearless, a force that transcended strategy, numbers, and technology. And then, as the final doors fell, the Zrithians saw it, the culmination of a species' willpower manifested in reality. Humans had dismantled the last bastion of empire, not through reckless force, but through ingenuity, courage, and unity. The Citadel shook, systems collapsed, and the Empire's power fractured irreparably. Yet humans did not celebrate with cruelty or malice. They moved through the ruins with discipline, attending to the wounded, securing strategic positions, and consolidating victory with precision and compassion. For the aliens, it was not merely a defeat, it was an existential revelation. Centuries of conquest, domination, and absolute control had been undone by beings they had considered small, fragile, and insignificant. And yet, here they stood victorious, their spirit unbroken, their strategy flawless, their courage monumental. Humanity had proven that sheer will, intellect, and unity could dismantle what millennia of oppression could not. The surviving Zrithians whispered among themselves in terror and awe. They had not lost a battle. They had witnessed the birth of a legend, one that would echo across galaxies and centuries. Humans, fragile yet indomitable, capable of reshaping the fate of empires with courage, ingenuity, and unbreakable resolve. The galaxy would never forget, and neither would they. Humanity had not merely survived, humanity had triumphed. And the universe, for the first time in eons, had seen the full measure of what it meant to be truly unstoppable. From the ashes of the Zrithian Empire, humanity rose not as conquerors, but as architects of a new galactic order. Across star systems once shackled in oppression, the survivors observed a transformation so profound that even the most disciplined Zrithian minds struggled to comprehend it. Colonies, long scattered and isolated, became hubs of innovation, diplomacy, and defense. Former oppressors, the Zrithians themselves, were cautiously integrated into this new order, their technology repurposed to rebuild rather than destroy.
Every act of reconstruction carried with it the same precision, courage, and ingenuity that had fueled the human counterstrike. The remnants of Zrithian historians recorded in awe what unfolded across the stars. Planets that had been reduced to rubble were rebuilt with unprecedented efficiency. Communications networks that had been destroyed were restored and upgraded. Orbital stations, once silent and abandoned, now pulsed with energy, housing not only human engineers but also aliens who had survived the collapse.
The humans approached every task with meticulous care, blending strategy with vision, intellect with compassion, and technology with an unwavering moral code. Across multiple star systems, the influence of humanity grew not through fear, but through inspiration. Formerly subjugated species watched and learned, adopting human methods of cooperation, innovation, and resilience. Entire sectors were transformed, not by domination, but by example. Human leaders traveled to former colonies, teaching, guiding, and mentoring those who had once been under alien rule. They coordinated reconstruction efforts that spanned entire star systems, uniting scattered populations under principles of justice, resilience, and ingenuity. On the orbital platform of New Thrill, engineers worked alongside alien scientists, repurposing technology once used for destruction into tools of creation. Weapons arrays became energy shields for civilian habitats. Starship engines, designed to project force, were optimized for exploration and humanitarian aid. Strategic data networks, once employed to control populations, were repurposed to coordinate trade, scientific research, and interstellar communication. Humans did not merely rebuild, they reimagined the galaxy itself. The Zrithians, watching from the fringes, could only marvel. For the first time in their history, they recognized that power was not measured solely by fleets, fortresses, or weaponry, but by ingenuity, unity, and the ability to inspire others. Humanity's greatest weapon was not technology or strategy, but the spark ignited in a single girl whose courage had shattered an empire in 47 minutes. That spark now guided every human decision, every innovation, every act of diplomacy. Across the galaxy, the memory of that defiance became a symbol of possibility, a reminder that even the smallest, most fragile individuals could ignite transformative change. In the human colonies, tales of heroism proliferated. Children learned of the girl who had faced the empire unflinchingly. Engineers recounted stories of improvisation and brilliance under pressure. Fleet commanders documented tactics born of intuition and courage. Every story, every legend became a lesson in resilience, determination, and moral clarity. And as these stories spread, they inspired a new generation of humans to act with courage, creativity, and ethical responsibility across the stars. Humanity's influence reshaped not only civilizations, but entire ecosystems of thought and collaboration. Where chaos once reigned after the collapse of the Zrithian Empire, order emerged, not imposed but nurtured. Trade routes reopened, once estranged planets formed alliances, and former enemies collaborated in projects that spanned light years. The galaxy became interconnected in ways the Zrithians had never conceived, guided by human ingenuity and empathy rather than fear and domination. Even the aliens who had survived the Empire's fall felt the transformative weight of humanity. They observed not only military brilliance but moral clarity, witnessing a species capable of wielding power responsibly, compassionately, and creatively. Across sectors, aliens began to integrate into human-led systems, contributing knowledge, technology, and experience to the rebuilding process. Humans demonstrated that strength could coexist with ethics, that intelligence could coexist with empathy, and that power could be exercised for creation rather than destruction. And as humanity expanded, exploring uncharted sectors and reconnecting isolated colonies, the legend of the girl who had sparked the revolution persisted. Her act of defiance became a symbol not only of human resilience, but of cosmic possibility. Each colony, each fleet, each interstellar mission carried forward the ethos of courage, innovation, and ethical determination. The universe watched, and wherever humans appeared, awe followed, accompanied by a cautious respect that transcended fear. By the time the first human-led interstellar councils convened, it was clear that a new era had begun. Governance was decentralized yet coordinated, blending human ingenuity with alien technology, creating systems that were both efficient and adaptable. Scientific exploration flourished, uniting engineers, scholars, and pilots in missions that expanded knowledge, secured safety, and nurtured prosperity across the stars. And through it all, the memory of the girl's courage remained at the heart of every decision, every action, every policy, a guiding light that inspired the galaxy to believe in the impossible. The Zrithians, now observers rather than rulers, whispered among themselves in awe and disbelief. They had once considered humans insignificant, fragile, and easily dominated. Now they understood the profound truth: humanity was a force of nature.
Fragile yet unstoppable, small yet monumental, mortal yet immortal in spirit. The girl's spark had grown into a galaxy-spanning blaze of resilience, ingenuity, and ethical power. She had revealed that the measure of a species was not its ability to conquer, but its capacity to endure, inspire, and transform. Across the cosmos, whispers became stories, stories became legends, and legends became a living, breathing testament to the indomitable human spirit. The galaxy had been reshaped not by force, but by courage, not by domination, but by ingenuity, not by fear, but by hope. Humanity had become more than a species. It was a movement, a paradigm, a force that reshaped the cosmos with every act of bravery, every calculated risk, and every moment of compassion. The era of human ascendancy had dawned. And as the stars themselves seemed to shimmer in acknowledgement, the Zrithians, and every other species that had witnessed the rise, recognized a simple, undeniable truth. The universe had changed, and the humans, fragile yet monumental, indomitable in spirit, had rewritten its rules forever.